let's look at the most common and most destructive myths about relationships. Our book details about 8 myths. We're going to focus in this presentation on 5 of the most significant ones. Myth number 1, opposites attract. People and their differences complement each other. I just talked about how that's false because great relationships require identical core values. Can't emphasize that enough. Our work over the last almost 3 decades with couples unequivocally, without a doubt, shows the strongest relationships have identical core values. That gets you through the roughest times in your life, and that brings you the greatest satisfaction in the relationship. Nothing comes close to that. But we need to understand what values are. Most people don't understand what a value is. A value is a belief system about how the world ought to be, not how it is necessarily. It's about how the world ought to be. And it has those 5 characteristics. It must be black or white, polar opposite. If it's a value, it is absolute. It's absolutely right or it's absolutely wrong. It must demand a decision to be made. If it's a value, it demands that you act on it and make a given decision. Number 3, it must be situationally neutral. Doesn't matter what the situation is, the value pertains. Situations never, ever determine values. This is an important point. If that happens, you have situational ethics and essentially chaos in one's life. The value either counts or it doesn't. It must be people neutral. Doesn't matter who's involved, the value pertains. A couple of years ago, I was working with one of our clients who ran a very, very large business that employed some family members. One of the family members was his son, and his son was failing in the business. He just wasn't going to do it, wasn't going to succeed. So my client called his son into the room, and my client had a baseball cap with 2 bills on it. Right? And he turned it around, and the bill on there said, "Boss." And he sat down his son. He said, "Son, I got bad news. You haven't been making it in the business. That's real clear to both of us. It's time for you to leave. I'm firing you." The son was just shocked, crestfallen, mouth dropped open. Turned around the baseball cap, and it said "Dad" on it. He said, "I heard you just got fired. How'd you feel about it?" Right? It doesn't matter who it is. The value is the value. Right? And if you're going to work with people that are close to you, and more people are, you better get clear on your values and the fact that it doesn't matter who it is. Right? More and more couples in our culture are working together. And they struggle a lot because they can't apply the values to the personal relationship. That's where it breaks down. If you're going to work together, you have to be able to do that. And lastly, it must be unambiguous and immediately clear. If it's a value, it's not capable of further definition. And anybody looking at it from the outside can see what it is. Right? And we'll give you some examples of that. Let me talk to you about some people we've worked with. And we've obviously, in all these examples, have changed the names because of confidentiality issues. There's a couple that came to us recently and was struggling with the decision to get married. First marriage for her, and it would be the second marriage for him. And what they struggled with was Bill's critiquing all the time. Bill was a finger pointer. When you talk, very successful business person, when you talk with him, you got this stuff. You know what? You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. You know, guess where he got that from? Okay, that was his life being pointed at, so he's a finger pointer. Joanne struggled with challenging him, putting that relationship at risk because she had lost a father at a very early age. She wasn't going to put another critical relationship at risk in her life. What we discovered in working with them about these was they had 2 core values that drew them together. Both had a tremendous drive for growth, and both had a tremendous commitment to individual responsibility. Both of those got them through the differences they were struggling with. And without those similarities, they wouldn't have gotten through. They would have ended up with this finger pointing and her backing off and being intimidated by it. So it was very, very instrumental to see them conquer these seemingly irresolvable problems and work through them very effectively. On the contrary, George and Donna, everyday life was miserable for them. Hey, George could never care about Donna no matter what he did, and they had a fundamental clash over values, fundamental clash. One of them believed in accountability, individual responsibility, and one of them believed in what we call victimhood. Victimhood means that no matter what I do, forces outside of me control my life. If you get those two belief systems in one relationship, it ain't going anywhere, no matter what you do. And that's real important to keep in mind in terms of assessing relationships you're in. Do you have fundamental agreements on those basic issues, or do you have fundamental disagreements? What we learned over the years is you can't change people's values. They are determined by 4, 5, 6 years old. Fundamental values are in place for a long, long time. They may not be articulated until much later in life, but the fundamental values are there. Okay. Values in the workplace. Two points here where these become important: recruiting and qualifying clients. I said earlier that the recruiting in our society at this point is about as accurate as a dartboard, because what we don't do in recruiting people and companies is recruit them for their core values. We teach our clients in our work that the first interaction with a potential hire is all about qualifying for values. We don't discuss the job. We don't discuss money, benefits, anything like that. And if that's all a candidate wants to discuss, the interview's over at that point. We don't get into those areas. First thing we get into is, what are the core values that drive your life? What's your life experience been like? And that has to match what we're looking for, or there's no point in going any further. You qualify for recruiting always at a value match. Same thing with clients, too. You're not going to do good business with clients who don't share your values. You know what effective marketing is? Finding value clones for your company in the outside world. That's what an effective marketing program is. You can't market to someone who has no respect for your values. But you need to know exactly what those values are. When I go out for lunch, dinner, meeting to see a potential client for our firm, I'm only looking for a couple things in that meeting. Number one, individual responsibility. As they talk about their personal, professional life, do they take responsibility for the decisions they make, or do they make it everyone else's problem? Number two, do they value growth over comfort? When they've had decisions to make in their life to grow or be comfortable, have they usually chosen growth? Number three, do they view change as a process or an overnight event? If they view change as an overnight event, we're not the folks to work with them, because we're not going to change their life miraculously overnight. That isn't going to work. Those are value qualifiers in every meeting that we have. And those are, in fact, three of the core values that Arlea and I have in our relationship, and it's always dominated everything we've done together. So those core values drive everything in your life.